So we started the We Choose series a couple weeks ago, as Corey mentioned. We choose community because community is foundational for us. We talked about community deriving from the biblical Greek word koinonia, which is the concept that embraces the embodiment of purpose, the action of sharing, the giving and the receiving of love. We choose to be attached to Christ. We choose community. Last week it was gratitude and why gratitude matters in the Christian life. Because gratitude literally in the Hebrew means recognizing the good. So gratitude is recognizing what God has done and recognizing what God continues to do. And it's the very heart of the biblical faith because it frames our response to everything. When we choose gratitude, we choose yes. Now this morning our theme is commitment, and yes, it's Commitment Sunday. And I hope that you received your commitment brochure in the mail. And if not, there are some available on the information desk in the narthex for you to take home. There's also a commitment envelope in each bulletin, and later in the service we'll have a time to present our commitment to ministry and mission, but I don't want to get ahead of ourselves yet. Because I want us to turn to the text for this Sunday. It's the third Sunday after Epiphany, and our reading comes from the Revised Common Lectionary, which is really just a list of scripture readings that we use during our year, making provisions for our rhythm, the patterns, and the seasons that we observe. And sometimes the lectionary fits really well into a series that we're involved in, and sometimes we have to switch it around a little bit. But this morning, I couldn't have picked a better, more perfect reading for our celebration of commitment than the story about the disciples choosing to follow Jesus, making a commitment. In the text, we hear that Jesus' ministry was just beginning. The Gospel of Mark starts with Jesus being identified at baptism as God's beloved, and then he goes off for retreat in the wilderness and returns. And he now launches his new venture. His ministry begins, as we heard today. His time had arrived. Now, there was some good foundational work done by John the Baptist, and we can't overlook that there was already movement. There was always a movement of the Spirit to open people's hearts and heads to receive Jesus. There was some good work set by John, and then the spotlight now shifts toward Jesus. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, then go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So Jesus planned to go far, and so he needed some disciples. So the call went out to Simon and Andrew and James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John, and they responded. They left their jobs, they left their families, they left their homes. They traveled together without a place, no reservations at the Hilton, no place to lay their head. They encountered great oppositions at times. They learned tough lessons. They were challenged by perplexing ideas and truths. They saw miracles and got to experience God's presence in their life. They chose commitment because without that commitment, they would have never even considered joining up, venturing out, nor would they have succeeded with such great success. So commitment was an essential value for the disciples as they journeyed with Jesus. And it has been said rightly that nothing shapes your life more than the commitments you choose to make. Nothing shapes your life more than the commitments you choose to make. And they chose to accept the call to faithfulness. They chose to accept their call into discipleship. They chose to embody their highest priority and greatest passion. Now, we share a call, And it is to be the instruments of God's work in our world now, to be literally the feet and the hands and the heart of the one who challenges us to make a difference in each other's lives, to share our faith, to live lives of integrity and meaning, to affirm high standards of ethic and love, to see life through the eyes of compassion and justice, even if it puts us at odds with our culture. Because there is much work that needs to be done. And it takes our commitment. It takes us to literally embody our highest priorities and greatest passion. God continues to use us to share the good news. So here's what I'm going to say. Well, I won't say a lot, but here's what I'm going to say first. We can make life richer and sustainable for each other as we fully commit to using the gifts God has instilled in us. We can work for justice and peace, reflecting the Christ we follow. God uses us to make life better for others. God breaks through the darkness of life and interrupts the discontent and discouragement with a new path. So here it is, my friends. I still think it makes sense to follow the one from Galilee. And we can choose Christ as our highest priority and greatest passion. I read a story about Albert Schweitzer. He was a German theologian, writer, and musician. And without any support of his friends and his family, those closest to him, he chose to accept the call of Christ upon his life, and his response was a commitment to give medical help to those who so desperately needed it, but could not afford it. So first he had to go to medical school. And even though he had no background in medicine, nothing would have indicated any move from him in that direction. And then he had to apply for missionary service, which some thinks is even harder to get into than medical school. And he was eventually accepted. And he was sent to Africa. There he worked for years, and later when he returned to Europe, among his efforts he advocated for the restraints of nuclear weapons testing. So we ask, why would such a brilliant and diverse, talented person train his focus on giving to others? And so this is what he said. Life becomes harder for us when we live for others, but it also becomes richer and happier. See, Schweitzer got it right, and so did the disciples, but it takes commitment. So I want to talk about commitment. And we have some challenges that will face us this coming year, and that will need a strong commitment from each one of us. So the folks who are here visiting with us and have a church back home, your invitation is to reflect on your commitment and faithfulness to the ministry and mission of your home church. We're not going to ask you anything of you other than what the text challenges each of us to consider: our commitment to following Christ. Now, there's some folks who are experiencing Pine Shores for the first time, or maybe you've been here a few times, looking for a church home. And I say to you, you came on a great Sunday. You came on the best Sunday because you know why? Commitment matters here. It's a core value of who we are. It is a part of who we are and what we believe God is calling us to accomplish. So my invitation to you who are looking for a church home is to ponder your priorities and your passions and choose to make or renew a commitment to connect with the family, a church family. Because this is what I believe: a call, a challenge, an invitation, an opportunity, a hurdle, an obstacle, a devastation, or impasse, whatever that may be, developing a new relationship, reconciling your past, solving a problem, connecting with Christ in a new church, and a business venture always requires a responsive commitment. Because without commitment, nothing is going to happen. It's been said, little commitment, little accomplished. Bold commitment, great things occur. And I believe that it is true that if you want to be successful, or if we want to be more faithful, we need people to be committed. Now, you remember the difference between being involved and being committed? It's like an egg and ham breakfast. The chicken was involved. The pig was committed. Our challenges, all our challenges, concerns our commitment. Now, this past week we remembered and celebrated the birthday of the great civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, who reminded us that life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? So I ask you, where are your highest priorities and greatest passion? And that's where our commitment shines. I read a story about John Stewart, not that John Stewart, a completely different John Stewart. Thank you. He writes, several months ago, I was in a fast food restaurant having coffee before Sunday school. And at one of the tables, a woman was sitting alone. She was unkempt, unwashed, untidy, and was having a conversation with an imaginary companion. Every now and then, she'd look over and smile at my wife and me, and then just continue to talk to herself. A few minutes passed when one of the servers came over to sit down with her. Now, at first, I thought the server was going to tell the woman to leave, but instead, she carefully cut her sausage biscuit in half and gave it to the woman. It was a beautiful and sacred moment. A holy communion was taking place right before my eyes. And what made this act so special was the fact that I knew the server was having severe financial problems. She was having problems of her own, and here she was sharing half her meal with someone whose need was greater than her own. So we choose commitment. So what are you holding back from making a bold commitment to your highest priorities and greatest passion? And it's not really a rhetorical question. It is the moment when you hear the invitation to be part of something great, something that transforms life and transforms relationships and the communities we live in and in the world. It is the invitation for us to make a commitment to live more Christ-like. So I remember something I once heard way, way back. And so I can't tell you that it's this is actually what I remember. It's not verbatim, but it's close enough for me. Something like an internal voice asks, will my gift count amidst the sea of others' offerings? More isn't always the most, and less isn't always the least. My commitment matters. It always matters. Approachability, availability, dependability, listening ears, understanding hearts, words of encouragement, being present when being present matters. Selflessness and a gift of the self. The endless possibilities lie with the Holy One. Here and now, if we simply commit whatever we are, whatever we can, and whatever we have somehow, it would be more than enough. And that is worthwhile. So let me end with the simple question. What is the deepest commitment someone has asked you to make? And will you accept your commitment to fully support the ministry and mission here at Pine Shores or at your home church with your time and your talents and your financial resources? We say choose commitment.